Yeah, I think we can start. And the update from my end is that both I and Shashi were able to run the E2E test successfully in that unmanaged mode. So what I have used is I used a DIN cluster for the latest KTS API server and 1.9 Minikube clusters. And I did face timeouts couple of times, but that was, I guess, mainly because my local clusters probably would not get the pods ready uh, in time. So they basically first time if it is run, then it might download the images for the deployment pods. So otherwise, all the A2E tests would pass, and because there were two clusters in the federation, the CRD test, there is a E2E test for CRD that was skipped. So I'm not sure if that is meant to be like that, or I mean, I'm not very sure about
Yeah.
what exactly does it test.
It's meant to skip. I mean, really, it's just what it was doing was a proof of concept of creating everything as CRDs, like all the primitives as a CRD. And maybe that, I don't know, that test maybe doesn't have to live much longer. It was just when I was working with the dynamic stuff, I wanted to make sure that we'd be able to federate CRDs,
Mm-hmm.
and we can. But it doesn't really require like multiple clusters because there's not really any behavior you would expect from a CRD that would demand that. It's just like, can I sync at all? That was the test. So
Okay,
anyway, don't worry
okay.
about it.
Hmm. Okay, cool. Yeah, and I spent some time going through the commits. Like this was in the afternoon when I did run the E2, and after that I was going through the commits. I have not been able to go through all of them, but I guess it should be fine to merge it as of now because there are many places which are to-dos and all that stuff, which basically either you or one of us can take up after post this PR. And post this, if this is merged, then we would also be able to proceed with updating the controllers. It should not be a big job as far as I understand. Uh, I would need to update the scheduling controller, and Shashi would need to update the DNS, multi-cluster DNS controller.
Sorry,
Uh,
what would the updates need to be?
The controller, have you, I didn't see that because I haven't gone through all the resources. Have the controllers also been updated for the new objects? I think the API
Yeah,
names and groups were changed, right? So you have updated the controllers also?
everything was changed. I mean, that's why the tests are passing. So
Okay,
integration
cool.
and E2E are all passing. So if the controllers
Mm,
hadn't been updated, I would expect failures. But
no,
it just
I actually did not write any E2 in my case, so that's why I was not sure. So yeah, I mean, if that's done, then
okay.
amazing.
I
Yeah.
mean, it depends on whether the behavior that you're testing requires E2E or not.
Hmm.
If it's something that can be validated in integration, I mean, at the very least, things are compiling. So like
Correct.
all of the controllers have been updated to use the new clients and the updated types. So unless there's specific behavior that you think would be affected, I think we should be good to go. But I mean, I encourage you to double check my assumption.
No, I believe you're right. Like even if integration are passing, they basically run against API fixture and a controller is run, so they should be fine. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
cool. So I mean, I'm happy to merge it. I just wanted to make sure, like, I'm not making some obvious mistakes. As you say, we can always correct in subsequent commits. I mean, the goal is just getting things to a known good state. And if
Hmm.
there's things that aren't caught by the tests, I mean, whether or not we're going to catch them manually is questionable.
Correct. Yeah.
we,
So
so, so yeah. So Ivan, have you had any luck reproducing? Lindsay, I'm on our side.
I I have verified integration tests as end-to-end managed as well as the end-to-end unmanaged using a Kubernetes, a KK master local up cluster script to initialize a cluster. But that is only one cluster. Has anyone tested multiple clusters? I mean, in theory, it should work, but
Yeah, that's what I was updating, right? So, okay, you're checking with Lindsay and Red Hat folks. Yeah, sorry.
No, I haven't
Yeah.
checked anything since like we were building it up.
Okay. No problem. I just wanted to make sure at least someone on our side besides me could reproduce. So Irfan, did you say that you had tested with multiple clusters or just a single cluster?
Yeah, that's what I mentioned. So I actually had 3 clusters, and
Nice.
I did not join the DIN cluster itself because it had some, like the API server is exposed on a local host port. So if I join it, then the controller is not able to reach it. I did not bother to update it and figure out how to get that public IP. So what I did was I had a DIN cluster where I would install the CRDs, and that would be the Federation control plane, and 2 different Minikube clusters apart from this uh, were joined to this Federation. So 2 clusters were there in Federation. That is where the tests all succeeded. If needed, the steps are not explicitly different. If needed, I can provide the steps also if anybody might be interested in that. To what
I guess the takeaway here, though, is that you can use any version of, like the member clusters don't have to be 111. It's only
that is what my main intention was also to check. So I use an older version explicitly. So I use a 1.9 version, and it worked fine. I mean, it did not have any issues.
Awesome. That is great that you thought to do that test, Irfan.
Cool. Okay. Well, sounds like we're in a position to merge this. So I'll take the hold tag off, and if somebody else wants to LGTM it, I think we're good to go.
Okay, so then we'll need to make sure that the canary build is updated, right?
Oh, what's the canary build?
The image build in CI.
Does that have to be done before merge?
No, we'll do that after.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I have created like a script that kind of works around the issue with YAML generation, and it points to an image that I've pushed to Docker Hub. And so once you get that, what did he call it? Canary build. Once you get the canary build up and pushing to Quay or Key, then we can update that the script so that it points to something other than an image that I've just randomly pushed.
Yeah. So once we get that image push working correctly, like we'll need to make it work with tags, and at that point, what we can do is tag the repo, and Travis will build an image and push an image for the tag. So like we'll tag o.o.1 when the time comes, and it'll build the o.o.1 tag for the image, and then we'll be able to have instructions in the README that say install it by running kubectl create -f with a link to the tagged install.yaml that uses the o.o.1 image, and that's how we'll get to that point. Make sense to everybody?
Sure.
Yeah, it seems fine, Paul. Yeah, and I believe one of you, either Lindsay or you, are working on having this image build and post the PR merge.
Yeah, so it already builds after merge to master, and the next step would be to making it work. Would be to make it work with tags, which are passed just a little differently in Travis.
Are you talking about the PR that was that Lindsay's last PR that was merged.
Yeah.
As far as I remember, that was doing the image build, uh, for the API server and controller manager that were together done using the API server builder, right?
Uh, yeah, it did. It did an image build that was a really simple build that just adds the API server and controller manager binaries into like Ubuntu as the base image. And I am saying that we have to make sure that that build works correctly now that we don't have the API server binary. We can do this as a follow-up, like immediately after Maru's poll merges, but we'll need to adapt that image build to the new Cube Builder scheme. That's all.
Yeah, should be fine. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, I should thank you, Maru. You have done a good amount of work in the last month to have this working, and it all seems logically done and correctly done.
So, do we have a good idea of what we think has to get done after this poll merges for us to feel confident tagging the first alpha? Do we want to talk through that now?
We have that list that we worked on last week, and I think it's basically still that.
Okay, why don't we run through that and figure out who's going to do what?
Sure.
Yep, I'll open up the notes. I didn't do that. And I was skipping updating the work group notes while we were having the meeting every day. Does anybody feel the need that the notes should be updated for all that we discuss in releasings?
No, I mean, I think the only thing missing from the list that's in the last meeting notes from June 29th was the image builds. I don't know why we didn't include it, but are we all knowing what we're looking at? Do you guys want a link?
Why don't we make an update that is an update for like everything between June 29th and today? How does that sound to folks?
Sure.
Okay.
Oh, let's see. I was starting to suggest. I wonder if I can.
Yeah, you can update Paul if you want to.
Yeah, I have edit permission on a different account, I think. So let's see. Okay, yeah, I can edit on this one. All right.
Yeah, so first one actually was the Cube Builder PR, which we are, I think, at a good place to go. Yeah, README docs. Would anybody want to take that up?
Do we need to rename CubeSnord?
Yeah, I think now it might be a good time to do that. And I guess the unjoin also might be useful before alpha. I think it's a pain once you have joined the cluster and then you can't just remove them. Like
I would say my own personal opinion would be let's not worry about unjoin as a blocker for alpha because we can release the next one like whenever unjoin's done. And I personally think it would be better for expedience, but you know, if somebody has capacity to get unjoined through, you know, I wouldn't object to it being in there.
I mean, if we get unjoin in there, you can always use it like once it comes out. But I mean, this first alpha release is like, be very careful. Don't use this in anything like production.
Yeah.
We're getting ready to give you useful code, and this is the first step. But yeah.
So we need to have a note to that effect for
it's part of the doc.
In the README.
Yeah. I mean, to me, like the critical thing is getting that README updated, getting an image build, and the new federated cluster to namespace and the renaming CubeSnord. Those are like, I think, the major things that have to get done, and everything else is optional and can be done later.
Okay, I'll add that renaming to node in these nodes itself. Okay.
Cool. So
And
keep going.
yeah, you can go ahead, Mo.
I'm actively working on moving federated cluster to be namespace scopes, and I'll have a PR up probably in an hour or two, maybe less. But hopefully there's nothing that will be blocking on me, like renaming KubeFed, updating docs, getting the image build working. None of those are on me, so I won't be blocking anyone for the next few days. I'll be back Monday.
Yeah, that should be fine. I noticed one more thing. Like I did not understand the reason behind that. It might be some problem with the cluster registry, and it might not be blocker for our alpha. I remember that earlier when we would join clusters and add the clusters to cluster registry, I can basically query the cluster resource from cluster registry, and I would get that these are the joined clusters. Currently, if I do kubefed get clusters, I basically get nothing.
Are you talking about KubeFed or like I think the command
kubefnode,
that's available?
kubefnode, kubefnode.
I think the only command that it responds to is join. I don't think the intention. Are you talking
Okay,
about
I think
kubefed?
I'm confusing you guys.
I think
So all
Irfan,
these resources can be queried using kubectl, right? So if
Yeah.
I do kubectl get clusters, I think my screen is
Irfan,
shared, right?
if I could interrupt you, I think I know what you're referring to.
Probably the namespace. Yeah.
And the clusters are now namespace scoped, so you have to use a
Oh,
specific
the
namespace to get to the
namespace. Okay,
cluster.
okay,
And it's in the kube multi-cluster public namespace.
okay. I get what you're saying. Got it.
Which is definitely something we'll want to document because that is a
Hmm.
change from previously where, like both, I mean, it's probably already documented for cluster registry, but we're going to have to make sure that that's communicated to anyone interested in Federation as well.
Okay,
And
so
it's also going to affect federated clusters. Like currently getting federated clusters, because it's cluster scoped, we'll just return them. But going forward, you'll have to say get federated clusters and then -n federation system. Like it's not that way today, but I'm working on that right now. And that's just to be consistent so that we're not having cluster scoped resources be related to non-cluster scoped resources.
this is slightly confusing. I don't know how exactly. I mean, we have to be very clear in the documentation to the users, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so I talked to Ivan yesterday, given that he's been gone a couple of weeks and hasn't really worked with a lot of the changes. I'm counting on him to be at least one of the people who like double checks our assumptions about what should or should not be documented.
Should I put Ivan's name against the documentation then?
I mean, I'm not suggesting that he has to do it all, but I definitely think he'll be spearheading that effort.
Ivan, that
Sure, I can do
seems
that.
to, yeah, cool. Thanks, Ivan.
I have to drop at the hour for another meeting, but I think it would be a good idea to make sure that the V1 Alpha 1 milestone in GitHub lines up with the official things that, like the things that we really expect to do. So I don't know that we have to do that right now, but maybe we could, tomorrow's the 4th. Let's do that soonish, Thursday at the latest. How does that sound?
Yep, if these items are finished, we ideally should be okay, good to go on Thursday.
Okay.
Make sure we have issues for all of them and they're associated with the milestone.
Yeah, I can do that tomorrow.
So Minikube
Unless
supported
somebody
11.
wants
I
to
don't
do
think is that legitimately a blocker? I don't think that's a blocker. We can't.
That's not a blocker to me.
Yeah, I mean, we want to do it, and we should make sure that, like Paul, if you can maybe make sure there's an issue so that that's tracked for future. But I don't think it has to be in the Alpha 1 milestone.
So the existing user guide does recommend Minikube as a method of creating a cluster to test this stuff. I think we can probably remove, we'll rely on users to bring their own clusters, at least until we can get Minikube support again, and then we can add it back.
Well, I thought that we were going to retain a set of transformations that we applied after regenerating code to make sure that this would work on 110. Is that not the plan?
This is not compatible with 110, as far as I know, and that's
Due to the Open API validation?
Yeah, like it's something like the issue that I linked to in various places where they're fixing the validation. It's going to land in 112 and hopefully the backport to 111. I don't know how successful we'll be getting the backport to 110, but I'm sure we can ask. But at this point, the manual fixes make it compatible with 111, and they won't work on 110. And 112 will just be compatible out of the box. We won't have to hand curate this stuff going forward.
I had thought that with the manual fixes, it would work with 110.
No, it works with 111.
What's the hang up with 110?
It's got more restrictive validation. I mean, I haven't tried it, to be honest, in a while, so maybe I'm missing something and I've misconstrued, so I guess it never hurts to try, but every time I've tried 110, I've come up with Upkiss, so.
Okay.
And to be clear, I mean, as per Irfan's experiment, this is only for the hosting cluster. There's no problem having member clusters, different versions, and so maybe the user guide can sort of refer to that, like temporarily until we get this resolved, you need to use, you know, a 111 cluster deployed via, you know, local cluster or Dyn cluster or what is it, GKE or whatever. Your member clusters, there's not that requirement.
Yeah, I think I'm still trying to figure out when it's going to land in GKE, but I heard that it should be in AKS for Microsoft in a few weeks.
Right. So I guess, I mean, for people kicking the tires in this, they're probably going to have to be developers and comfortable with Dyn cluster or local up cluster until Minikube comes around.
Yeah, actually, it seems fine to provide links to how to bring up a local cluster or DIN cluster, right?
Yeah, I think it's fine. And
Yeah.
we just got to make sure it's in there.
Yeah, we can provide references, but not actual commands to actually.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I meant. So what you suggested, Ivan, was that we ideally should, for now, remove the recommendation of Minikube and the commands that actually are listed over there. So we can do that, and we can say that it is that the current infrastructure is needed as 1.11 to install these CRD-based resources with whatever restrictions we have.
Yeah.
And that can point to, and we can say recommendation that for developers who want to try it out, they can either use a local up cluster which already has this support and the Dyn cluster.
Yep. I'll probably leave a reference to Minikube and just specifying that until it supports, until profiles are fixed. The latest Minikube does support 1.11, but there's still an issue with profiles, I believe. So we can at least leave a reference to it because that should hopefully work eventually once that's fixed.
I thought that there is an open issue about support for 1.11. When Minikube does not support the latest 1.11 release, does it? I
downloaded the .28 version and specified the Kubernetes version flag and put 1.11, and that didn't have any issue.
Then that should be fine, right? The only issue is that you cannot bring up two clusters then.
But I guess it's fixed.
Okay, guys, I got to drop. Talk to you Thursday.
Okay, Paul.
Bye.
Bye.
So if that works, that's awesome. I didn't realize. I mean, that does sort of if the profile thing is still broken, we got to fix that. But at least if people have a way of bringing up a 111 cluster that's trivial, that makes things a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah, we just need to address I believe the profile issue still exists. It failed to create.
Okay, so we are saying that these are the items which need to be closed to do the alpha release, and maybe tomorrow I'll give it a go for unjoin. I think it might not be more than a day's effort.
I think that I wasn't sure whether, yeah, I guess for some reason I wasn't sure whether the authentication stuff was being properly removed from the member cluster, but I guess, was it just removing it from the Federation system namespace?
Yeah, and say that again, Maru.
I guess that when I looked at it, I had some questions in my head about how it was cleaning up the member cluster, like when it creates the service account. But is the service account just created in the member cluster in a Federation namespace that's just removed, and so everything goes with it?
No, everything doesn't go with it. So there are roles and role bindings that are created. They also need to be removed.
Okay, yeah. I'm not sure I saw that being removed, so maybe I was missing something, but yeah, as long as that's done.
Yeah, and you know why I am saying this is because I did do this setup, and then I did run an E2E, and I told that there were some timeout issues, and first time couple of tests did fail. So I wanted to clean it up, and it was like pain. Like you have to remove each of the, if you want to correctly do it, you have to remove the cluster role binding, service account, secret, all those things, and and you
Which
might
is
still miss something.
I mean, some of that, I mean, the delete script, I think handles most of that, but it only does it for a single cluster. So if you're doing multiple clusters, you got to do it manually. So I can see why you're more interested in getting unjoin working, because it was kind of a pain to fix it for a single cluster, and then it doesn't solve it for multiple.
Yeah.
So
so users who basically use it, it would be really a pain. It means the other simple way is you remove the cluster, means delete the cluster, create it again, kind of thing. But which is like not really a good way to do it, right?
But I mean, as much as that might be useful, I think we have renaming kubefnord to kubefed, and we don't have anyone owning that. So I would say, from a priority perspective, that is more important than getting unjoin working.
Sure, I can take this up.
Okay. Now the only question I have, and this is something we've talked about before with regards to creating a binary called kubefed, there's a potential for confusion. Like, how does a user going to differentiate between kubefed for v2 and kubefed for v1?
Yeah, so I remember that. Yeah, so I remember that our decision on having this differentiation was that we'll start the versioning from something like 2.0 or v2, something like that for this KubeFed. So we had support for earlier KubeFed until 1.9, I guess, with K8s. After that, there is no support. This should have something post that. Either
so the idea would be is you'd call it like kubefed, and the version it reported would be like 111.
Yep. Either sync with K8s, or we can define our own versioning scheme here, which is like for V2, we start the version from 2.0 or something like that, because we are calling the whole thing as V2, right?
We're calling it V2 just to differentiate. I mean, if at some point Federation is effectively deprecated, then maybe we can take on its name and kind of usurp it. I mean, the fact that you're not going to see Federation v1 supporting cube greater than like 109. I mean, any Persian subsequent. I don't know. I think that's probably fine. I was kind of wondering whether we want to do like kubefed v2 just to be explicit. But probably the versioning scheme, as long as they're disjoint, like you'll never see a Federation v1 version greater than 109, and you'll see v2 never less than like 111, then hopefully that's good enough.
That seems to be so right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think that's all. Someone wants to LGTM that PR.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that.
Cool.
I don't know that we have an actual versioning set up for Kubefenor though.
Yeah, currently, actually, we don't have a versioning setup for all the binaries that we are creating, right? Neither
Right.
for the controller manager also there is no direct versioning scheme. So this might be, I guess we might have this also as one of the points which we want to solve before Alpha, right?
I think just hard coding it for now. Like I don't think we need any fancy scheme, and I'm not too worried about the controller manager because we're going to have versioning in the image. So I mean, unless it's really easy to just like unless KubeBuilder provides some sort of versioning mechanism, I say just do it as simply as possible and do like 111 alpha 1 or something like that as a starting point. I mean, obviously you can hash it out and review if anybody disagrees, but that would be my suggestion as a starting point.
Okay. Yeah. I'll try to give it some thought and put some alternatives. We can take a call. So you are there in office tomorrow, Maru? Or tomorrow is a holiday for you guys?
I'm gone the rest of the week. Today is my last day for the week.
Oh, okay. Tomorrow is July the 4th. Okay. So that's
I'm
actually an
off
official
Thursday,
holiday.
Friday,
Yeah.
but I mean, Ivan, Lindsay, and Paul should be working Thursday and Friday and have as much insight into this as I.
Okay. Yeah. Should be okay. We should be able to decide something. And I believe you are okay with syncing the version of the binaries like you fed to the current KHF release. That does not sound right to me somehow.
I think. I mean, the challenge is that we're using an API that's kind of tied to Cube, and we've talked about this in the past. So that if by providing a version that has some sort of parallel, it gives sort of an easy reference point. I'm not sure if that's the way to do it long term, because maybe we'll want to do something different. But for now, that just seems simplest. KubeFed v111-alpha 1. Actually, I guess the alpha status is maybe that's what's confusing. Like Cube 111 versus Federation alpha 1.
How does that starting the versioning for all the binaries, we can say 2.0 onwards. So it's alpha 2.0. Then it can be alpha 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, and then it can become beta something.
I don't know. I mean, maybe this is, like I said, I think maybe it's best off to just pick something and then hash it out in review so you get as many people as possible talking about it. But my take is, I think there is value in having like a reference to the Cube version that we're like supporting as a minimum, and then like indicating alpha status just by tagging it. I don't know that that makes. I mean, I don't know if that's sustainable, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'm also confused about this. So.
I'm sorry, I'm going around in circles.
Yeah. Let's take a call on. We'll try to take a call on Thursday.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, I don't think it's too critical to get it exactly right. You just need something that's halfway sane, just to get an alpha out with a version that's different from existing versions of KubeFed. That's the main thing.
Yeah.
Differentiate from KubeFed in a useful way, which I think the Cube versioning scheme is good for. And however you do that, I mean, that's a suggestion, but really it doesn't matter. Just differentiate. I think that's the main thing.
Okay, yeah. I'll try to think about something.
Cool.
Okay, so this also seems like I put my this.
Anything else?
That's it. So have a good holiday, Maru, and rest of the folks. I'll see you on Thursday. I'll cancel tomorrow's meeting. I had put it for the whole week.
Okay. Thanks all.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
See you guys.
Irfan,
Yep.
if possible, maybe also, it looks like the meetings are set up to be all day, so it
Yep.
doesn't necessarily show up like in your list of meetings. Maybe just have it like recurring Monday through Friday.
No, I don't think it's set up for the whole day. It
It's
is.
kind of, it's weird. It is set up. I don't know. The time is right, but it doesn't appear in the calendar as the right time for some reason.
Does it? It doesn't appear in the calendar. This
Like the
is.
time.
So like if you go to your week,
Oh, yeah. I see what she's saying. It's not repeated. It's that the meeting is July 2nd to July 6th. It's 10:30.
Oh, that way. Okay, okay.
it's
Yeah,
one,
yeah.
it's
I,
one
I, I got
invite.
it. I got it. I got it. Was so I'll try to update this. Yeah.
Great, thanks.
Thanks for telling this, Edwin. Okay, I'll see you guys on Thursday then.
Yep, thanks, Irfan.
Bye bye.
Take care.
Thanks, everyone.